Welcome into Second Down on ESPN Radio. Christian Gokel hoping to provide you with a little bit more entertainment than what we had on the radio yesterday, which was just the Braves sleepwalking their way through the rubber match.
That might have been entertaining for some people. You never know.
Mets fans.
Yeah. How about those home runs, though, by Austin Riley?
I mean, Austin Riley's great. He should be an all-star. But, again, Second Down on ESPN Radio. Yesterday kind of bothered me with the Braves. And I know you lose the series. It's not great. Not really that big of a deal either. You're just 2.5 back of the Mets when you were 10.5 back, as we all know, at the beginning of June, right? So I think since the last 40 games, the Braves are 30-10, which is the best mark in Major League Baseball. So
not terrible.
Not a whole lot of reasons to be upset. But coming off of the game yesterday, I got some beef, and I don't know. And Kevin, feel free to correct me if I'm being just typical sports fan here and not understanding the game. I understand you play 162 games every single year in baseball. I, along with a lot of other Braves fans, don't understand why this team gets down 4 runs real early and then just. I remember yesterday, It's 4-0.
Yep.
Then it becomes 5-0 off a solo shot. Fine, whatever. But then after that, you hit a home run. Matt Olson, dead straight center field, 5-1.
Mm-hmm.
But still, you're already in don't really care mode. Put in the bullpen guys that you're just going to get us through. Give up 2 more runs, and then it's 7-1, and then, okay, it's actually maybe a little bit out of reach. Flip that, you tack on a couple runs at the end of the game, and it's 7-3, whereas if you had buckled down when it's 4-0, it's 4-3 in that situation. And that's a whole different ballgame. So if I have any beef with this Braves team, that would be it. But Kevin, is it just, do I need to calm down because it's 162 games? Yeah, Kevin says probably. Thank you. All right. I get it. If you're playing a 17-game season and you give up after you get down big early, a little bit different story than if you're playing 162 of them. So probably don't want to blow through the arms in the bullpen that were probably tired already, trying to chase a win that probably wasn't going to happen. But I think Braves fans wanted this series.
Yeah, and it depends on what's coming up to me. It also depends on if this is on, again, like you said, if this is an ongoing issue or not. So there's different things, right? And there's different trends that you have to pay attention to and get worried about. And this is one of them for me, because think about what just happened, right? Like in the past calendar year, you come off the All-Star break, you make all the trades, you go on that run, you win a World Series.
Sure.
Well, part of that is like, what does that do to the psyche of guys? One way or the other. A lot of people say it doesn't affect them or whatever, but these are the certain trends and times that worry me, especially when you're coming off of a success like that. It's almost like, well, don't worry about it because we can turn it on when we need to. Yeah. We can really try when we need to. We can, choose to do things a little bit differently with the bullpen and whatnot and chase this win when it's important. And the mood of the guys, and just like you said, just going after it, we can do that when we need to. Okay, yeah, you did it last year and it was great.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that in 3 months, when quote unquote you need it more, it's just gonna happen. But again,
I feel like we're projecting other sports onto baseball.
I guess I don't know. I have,
and it's kind of basketball. I think is in the same vein too, where if the Lakers or the Warriors are down 25 going into the 4th, they're not going to try to kill themselves to win a regular season.
Of course not.
And honestly, it's kind of made its way to the playoffs in basketball, where it's like it's a 7-game series. We're down 20 going into the 4th. Who cares? If it's the finals, a little bit different story. But in those early, like you see it. The Hawks have done this in the past where they just kind of mail it in going in. So it's just, I think it's maybe it's just a football thing that we're projecting. I don't know. But once Lindor hits that tank that he hit, puts you up 4-0, you could just feel everyone, even just kind of the fans and like riding in the car, listening to it. You're just kind of, all right, well, it's hot. It's noon. Let's get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm. All the air came out of the hole.
Umpires, maybe winding out that strike zone a little bit. Like, hey, it's pretty hot out here in Atlanta during the middle of July. Let's get out of here. So I don't know, probably just baseball thing, but it does stick your craw a little bit when it was a big series that you were hyping up. And maybe the fans just hyped it up more than the actual teams themselves.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
they're coming in for the division lead.
Sure, and that's great. You can still, again, like you can still grab it moving forward. You don't have to be playing the Mets.
Yeah.
To get the division lead by any means.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say is heading into the All-Star break, the Braves still have a chance to have a lead in the division. They're 2.5 back. New York has a 4-game set coming up with the Cubs. Meanwhile, the Braves have a 4-game set at the Nationals.
Right. Yeah, no, it's big.
Cubs have been one of the better teams in baseball lately.
Yeah.
Nationals pretty abysmal. They're 30-60 at the moment.
Yeah, no, I could turn things around. But I mean that's one of the things that I was gonna say though, is especially going into the All-Star break, if you're gonna chase a win when you know you have about a week off coming up, why not do it then? So I don't know. If it is what it is. But no, that's obviously a very important stretch coming up, and maybe coming out of that, the Braves can be closer to or have that division lead for sure. Definitely an opportunity to. You have to hope that the Cubs do what they need to do and help the Braves out a little bit, and of course, then you got to handle all 3 games against the Nationals.
Energy in here right now feels like the Braves game yesterday.
Okay.
PJ's just like, you just gotta hope the Cubs can help him out. I feel like I feel like I did that to you. By like talking about the energy in and around the Braves the way you're now talking about the games going forward, it feels like listening to that game yesterday where it's like, well, we're down 4-0 here and we got to sit here for 7 more innings and so do you. So let's just, No, let's get away from the negatives.
Okay,
let's talk about the fun stuff. Who's starting for the Nationals tonight? This will make Kevin smile. Anibal Sanchez. 38-year-old Anibal Sanchez hasn't started a game since October 26, 2020.
Wow.
Nats just activated him off the 60-day DL, or IL, excuse me. 60-day IL. Gets to start tonight against the Braves. That should be, hopefully, some batting practice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hopefully, yeah.
All right, let's not let the loss yesterday, suck any more life out of the show today. Let's talk about something fun, PJ. Something I know that's near and dear to your heart. ACC quarterbacks.
Yes, love that.
Well, okay, so the reason I bring it up, the ACC just announced, much like we talked about last week, who their attendees are going to be, student-athlete attendees to ACC Media Days in Charlotte. And as I was looking through them, I was like, quietly, the ACC has a damn good group of quarterbacks right now.
Very quietly.
Like going into last year, not really the same kind of vibe, right? Didn't know what to expect out of Clemson because of Trevor Lawrence is moving on, right? Miami, we hadn't even heard of Tyler Van Dyke yet.
Well, that's
Brennan Armstrong was a name that no one knew.
Yeah,
I think Sam Howell was probably the odds-on favorite to be the best quarterback in the ACC last year.
I think it was a different vibe, but I think it was for different reasons. Like, yeah, no one knew who Van Dyke was, but everyone was freaking out about De'Aaron King, and you see how that worked out. Like, there were a lot of people that were, holding DJU as like a Heisman candidate and basically giving it to him already after the Notre Dame showing.
They thought he would just slide in and be the next guy, right? Like Deshaun, Trevor, DJU, forgetting that there was a Kelly Bryant year and a half in between there.
Right. No, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people had a lot of hype for Kenny Pickett as well. So, it was very different. It's crazy to see how different it turned out by not even the end of the year, like week 6. So, no, it's certainly in a very interesting, different spot this year, without a doubt.
So I think going into this year, if we're talking best college quarterback to me in the ACC, it's Malik Cunningham.
Yeah.
Out of Louisville. And I don't know that he gets the attention he deserves. Last year, 2,941 passing yards, 19 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Not great in terms of the skew there, but when I add in the other stats here, you kind of see where his game's at. 1,031 yards on the ground and 20 touchdowns from the quarterback for Louisville. Almost 40 touchdowns on the ground, which not too long ago was kind of unheard of, a combined 40 touchdowns from a quarterback, right?
True. Yeah.
Over 4,000 total yards. And just quietly, nobody really talks about him. Just hanging out there with Scott Satterfield playing at the Pizza Stadium.
Yeah. That's part of the problem there is, like you said, no one talks about him enough, and we're just overlooking all these crazy stats he's putting up. But
Correct.
At the same time, it's, probably because of the team around him there at Louisville and kind of the success they haven't had. But
it's pronounced Louisville.
Okay.
Louisville.
Right. Gotcha.
Like, it's got to get stuck in the back of your throat a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Kind of like Billy Napier.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let you say it like that. But it's wild how much people kind of don't pay attention to it, but he's always up there putting up highlight crazy plays.
Devin Leary, another really good one at NC State. To me, I really like Devin Leary, and 35 touchdowns to 5 interceptions last year for him, returning to try to take NC State to that next level, try to go up to the ACC championship. They beat Clemson last year. They were the one who ended Clemson's reign of terror in terms of ACC matchups, right? But Devin Leary, if there's one drawback to me, it just feels like he doesn't have that killer instinct. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, really good in the game flow, but when it comes down to it at the end, it's just, and he got it done against Clemson last year, and I will readily hand that to him. But I think a lot of that had to do with Clemson's offense just being atrocious, especially early in the year. He just doesn't have that killer instinct late in the game. Maybe that's something that changes. We mentioned Tyler Van Dyke last year, takes over for De'Aaron King, goes for almost 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he's a gunslinger, and all of a sudden has propelled his way from backup quarterback last year to potential top 10 pick.
Yeah.
Coming up following this season. We mentioned Malik Cunningham. Brennan Armstrong, he gets DJ Hughes, former offensive coordinator, as his head coach now, and Tony Elliott, after Bronco Mendenhall retires last year, 4,449 yards through the air.
Crazy.
31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and also had 9 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah. No, it was wild. You look down and you see Virginia putting up, 30s, 40s, 50s all year. It's like, what in the world is happening there? And it was mostly all him. So
the defending Coastal champion quarterback Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, he's back for another year.
Yeah.
He went for over 4,000 yards last year, 39 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. He did have 50 touchdowns last year, PJ. 11 touchdowns on the ground for Sam Hartman. He's back. Kadon Slovis comes over from USC to try to replace Kenny Pickett there for Pitt. He had 2,513 yards, 11 touchdowns last year to 8 interceptions, but he got banged up during the season. Phil Jurkovich is back at Boston College, another guy who got injured last year, but could be a excellent quarterback for Boston College. DJ Hughes back at Clemson, like we were just talking about going head-to-head against him. He's back.
Yeah.
And as of right now, probably going to be the starter. But Cade Klubnik might be the best quarterback in the ACC right now, and he's a true freshman.
Right.
So watch out for the guys there. In Orange, down in Tallahassee, you have Jordan Travis back for another year. He's not going to have to split reps again this year with Dylan Gabriel. Last year, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, and added 7 touchdowns on the ground. Expect big things out of Jordan Travis. Garrett Schrader at Syracuse, I think that's a relatively unknown commodity, but did have 14 touchdowns on the ground last year. Drake May at North Carolina, no idea.
Yeah.
It's been Sam Howell's show for a long time. Grant Wells transfers in from Marshall to take over the Virginia Tech job. He had 16 touchdowns and 13 interceptions last year. Jeff Sims at Georgia Tech. Like, if Jeff Sims is the bottom of your quarterback barrel, that's a pretty good quarterback conference.
Yeah.
Right? Last year had 16 total touchdowns, just under 2,000 total yards, and a very inconsistent, I think is being generous, offense. And then finally at Duke, I guess, Riley Leonard, the projected starter. But still, if we're getting down to it and Jeff Sims is the bottom of that ranking, that's a pretty good conference.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. That's pretty solid. That is one of the interesting things about this conference, and maybe they make me, eat my words here by the end of the year, but especially there at the quarterback position, it's like the sometimes you have those one or two guys that just have superstar potential that are just absolutely insane, vying for the Heisman, things like that. And then you kind of have a median and then a really bad, right? With ACC, it's all very like relative. It's all kind of right there next to each
They
other.
have a
Like
couple of situations that can be pretty bad,
Sure,
but for the
yeah,
most part,
by
I
the
think
bottom,
all of
but
I think like what 12 out of 14 teams probably feel really solid about their quarterback.
yeah, I think especially like 1 through 10, 1 through 11
Yeah.
there are really, really close to each other in, what they've done and what they could be. So
I think there could be some
really
shuffling,
fun.
right? Sam Hartman could be the best at the end of the year. DJU could
Yeah.
be the best at the end of the year. Brandon Armstrong, I think, certainly makes the case. But for me, right now, Malik Cunningham's the best college quarterback. I'm not talking about pro prospects.
Yeah, no,
I'm talking
forget
about
that.
college quarterbacks. Malik Cunningham at Louisville is filthy. But there's a bunch of really good players inside the ACC. And I think it's a conference that has been down recently.
Yeah.
But with some moves, I think Mike Norvell's doing a good job at Florida State. I like what I've seen thus far in the offseason from Mario Cristobal. We haven't seen it on the field yet, but just the moves that he's made. Plus, you have a really good quarterback coming back and Tyler Van Dyke. I like what I've seen out of them. Clemson, I would not expect them to be down for too long. And again, is 10-3 really down?
Right.
They might have the best defense in college football next year. We'll actually talk about that here in a little bit. But ACC, I won't say it's back, but it's certainly not as abysmal as it's been in the past.
Right. No, not at all. I think that the talent is there. I think for the ACC, we were really looking forward to and trying to as good. That's the crazy thing is having so many solid college quarterbacks in there and having the talent these teams do. There's a lot of potential to do what the ACC does and cannibalize itself throughout the season. So yeah, I think for a lot of ACC fans, you're hoping that yes, while you do get some fun football, you have a lot of really good teams. You don't have a lot of 7-5s at the end of the season, but we'll see.
I do think there's one team that's better than the rest, and we're going to dive into that when we come back. But this is Second Down. We're presented to you by the Uniform Source on ESPN Radio. If you miss any portion of the show, check it out wherever you get your podcast. We got more to come after this. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Christian Gokel alongside PJ Zuko. Glad to have you all with us here on this Thursday afternoon. We were talking about Clemson there in the last segment, PJ, and it's amazing how quickly the narrative and the landscape and the attention can just get pushed away from you when you only win 10 games in a season.
That's it. That's it.
I guess to be fair, they lost a couple early, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You drop one to Georgia to start the season, 10-3. Don't give up a defensive touchdown, but lose the game, right? And then you lose to NC State, and all of a sudden, all right, we don't care about you anymore. You have 2 losses. We'll see you next year.
Yeah.
But I think that has kind of, I don't want to say skewed our vision on Clemson, but it's just kind of moved our attention away from them, which I think could be dangerous because we could be sitting here at the end of December going, well,
should have paid more.
Another college football playoff for Clemson.
Yeah, should have paid more attention to Clemson.
And I think they have a very good blueprint, if they needed one, as to what their team could look like in 2022 from a team that they saw in 2021, which is the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs. So last year, Clemson's coming in fresh off of another playoff, right? What was that Trevor Lawrence and Clemson getting smoked by Justin Fields in Ohio State?
Believe so. Yeah.
So fresh off another appearance in the college football playoff, defending ACC champs, coming in, taking on a Georgia team. Kirby Smart, you're either a leader or you're not, yada, 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 right? That was the narrative last year. Georgia doesn't win those games. Clemson's one of the standards in college football. And then Georgia ends up winning it. And I think Clemson kind of had culture or identity crisis after that first game, because all of a sudden you went from Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne scoring whenever you wanted to. You had multiple NFL wide receivers that have cycled through that school, right? And you just couldn't get anything going. There wasn't a guy that you could just go, get this person the ball, and they'll carry us through this game. Like, again, you'd done with Trevor Lawrence in the past. 2018 against Ohio State, can't score any points. Trevor Lawrence breaks off an 80-yard touchdown run, right? Travis Etienne saved that team multiple times. He was the ACC's all-time leading rusher. Both of those guys leaving at the same time, I think, kind of left Clemson with a little bit of an identity crisis. They didn't really know what they wanted to be on offense, and I don't think they really figured it out the rest of the year because that offense just remained clunky. And everyone wants to point it at the quarterback, DJU, but
of course, yeah.
I don't think you go from being a guy who throws for, did he throw for 400 yards at Notre Dame or close to it? He torched Notre Dame at Notre Dame.
I know it was 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I know you don't go from that guy to I don't know how to throw a football in 1 year. I don't think enough people are giving credence to losing Travis Etienne and what he meant to that offense. But that being said, you don't lose that in 1 year. So Clemson just was struggling to find who they were, and I think just based off their roster, they can base it off of Georgia going into 2022. You don't need your offense to lead you. They won a national championship in the not too distant past doing this, right?
Yeah.
2018, just letting their defensive line with multiple first-round picks, Clinton Farrell, Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, all those dudes on the defensive line, let them eat. And then nobody's going to score more than 20 points on you. Offense just has to do what it has to do, and you're going to win a national championship.
Yeah.
Right? Made Alabama and Tua look average.
I was going to say, even that same year, going to the national championship, and was it Trevor Lawrence and that offense just blowing people away? I mean, sure, maybe later in the game, but it started off with the defense.
Trevor Lawrence. That was a team that was led by Kelly Bryant for the first 4 games.
Right.
And then they had to make the decision because of the redshirt rule, whether they were going to keep going with Kelly Bryant or just be honest with him and say, hey, we're probably going to go to Trevor at some point, switch to Trevor Lawrence so he can save that red shirt.
Yeah.
And I mean, rest is history. They go and win the national championship. But looking at this defense, right, it's, I want to say, as close to what you saw from Georgia in terms of talent-wise as you're going to get this year. So you have Miles Murphy at defensive end, probably going to be a first-round pick. Xavier Thomas, who is a freaky edge guy, probably going to be a first-round pick. Also have KJ Henry and Justin Mescal, who are both excellent players. And then you have Tyler Davis and Brian Brisset at defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Which
Monsters.
perceived like might be a top 10 pick. So you have that level of depth across your front. Now, do you have a Nakobe Dean at linebacker? No. Like you lost your guy in James Skalski, he's gone. But they have some really good players at those positions. But I just feel like that defensive front just makes up for a lot on the back end. People forget this about Georgia last year. You had a really young secondary to start the year, and you needed that defensive line to kind of carry them and just give nobody time to sit back there and look through the first part of that season. The secondary came along as the season went, but prior to that, it was just don't give them any time, eat them alive.
Yeah.
And also because you're so good, we can drop 7 every single day.
Right.
We don't need a 5-6.
Just crazy. Yeah.
So I'm just looking at this defense and I'm thinking you have a guy who came out with all the accolades in the world at quarterback in DJU. And hey, if that doesn't work out, you've transitioned from starter because Kelly Bryant had a full year where he started for Clemson, won an ACC championship, went and got housed by Alabama in the college football playoff. The next year comes back, starts a quarterback for a few games, and gets replaced by the 5-star, right? DJU starts every game last year, goes 10-3, right? Coming back this year, probably going to be your day one starter, but Cade Klubnik, who was like the Elite 11 MVP,
checks all the boxes.
Won a state championship in Texas, 5-star, unbelievable.
Right.
And they've said the competition between those two has been really close so far in the offseason. If the offense ain't working, which you have a new offensive coordinator, the offense isn't working, you can make that switch.
Yeah.
So you kind of have that in your bag, but you just have the fallback of, or we can just win games 14-3.
Right.
If we need to.
Which is they're very capable of doing. Again, they proved it. They proved it last year, and obviously they have the defense to be able to do that again if they need to.
Yeah, Davos thinks that 7 defensive linemen could be drafted next year, which is just nuts. Wes Goodwin is the new defensive coordinator. Brent Venables, their longtime coordinator, now the head football coach at Oklahoma. So if there is one little twist there, it's you do have a first-time defensive coordinator, but Wes Goodwin, a guy who studied under Brent Venables, is inheriting this defense. I would not expect to see too dramatic of a shift, at least in year one, right? Think Jeremy Pruitt replacing Kirby Smart.
Yeah, exactly. I think those are probably like the best moves.
Yeah.
For an offense, for a kind of system like this, is being able to promote within and have that familiarity with the guys. It makes things a whole lot more easy than having to transport a new defense, all this, learn all these different things. Now, have that familiarity with the guys, and obviously you already have the skill and the ability there.
Yeah.
Just let them go to work. So hopefully we see that.
It's interesting. And on offense, they have basically 2 offensive coordinators, right? The pass game coordinator is going to be Kyle Richardson for Clemson. And I think more so than anything, you got to start with DJU because you just don't want to go into the season with a freshman. I know we see it more and more inside of college football, but at this level, you want to have their dream is having the junior step up and be the guy for the season, right? I think your first goal has to just be getting him some confidence. And I'm looking at Will Shipley, their running back / slot receiver / do it all guy. And I'm just thinking that guy's got to make a quarterback's life so much easier.
Yeah.
He's very Alvin Kamara-esque.
Right.
Just make it easy on him. Bubble screens.
Yeah.
Texas routes.
Right.
Hand the football off.
Hopefully have some success there.
It's a crazy concept, but hand the football off. But it's just, I'm not ready to bury Clemson yet. And I know they didn't win the ACC championship last year. Pitt gets the title, taking out Wake Forest in the championship game. But to me, Clemson still runs this conference.
I think, they certainly run it until they have a prolonged absence,
honestly,
right?
Like Dabo Swinney said there's 7 defensive linemen who are going to be drafted off of this team. Do you think there are 7 other defensive linemen in the ACC that will be drafted?
That's a really good question. It might be right at 7. I don't think it's more. So having that many on one team.
There's a couple guys from Miami that might, even though they're having to replace a lot. I'm trying to think around. There might be more Clemson defensive linemen drafted than the rest of the ACC.
That's the thing, right? Especially like right now, the ACC as a whole doesn't really seem like a big front 7 type of conference. You know what I mean? Like, you have Clemson there, and
Well, that's how
you know,
Clemson puts a stranglehold on the conference,
Exactly.
right? Is okay. Your
They have
blueprint
those
wants to be
guys.
quarterbacks and wide receivers. Our blueprint's going to be offensive lineman and defensive
Yeah,
lineman.
not letting those guys do anything.
Correct.
Yeah. No, exactly. So no, I think you're right there. Yeah, probably 7 or less in the whole rest of the ACC. Like you said, that's their bread and butter.
It's fascinating. And again, Clemson doesn't have to start with Georgia this season. They do have to start with the Georgia. They just start with a different team.
How about that?
Playing Georgia Tech and Mercedes-Benz to kick off the season. I think your offense might have a little bit more confidence coming out of that one than it did from the first game last year. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We got some Falcons talk to dive into next. It's the Second Down on ESPN Radio. PJ, when you know something bad's going to happen, you just got to find the silver linings in it. Try to take the positives away. Like when you know there's nothing you can do to change it, you got to find the silver linings in it. And you have to find the good and try to build off of it, right? You can't just waller in the sadness and the darkness. You got to find something to build on.
You can, but you're going to be there for a while if you do.
Like, see the good, I guess, is the best way I can put it out there to you, right? See the good.
Okay. Right.
So when the Atlanta Falcons play football coming up this fall,
yes,
there's going to be a lot of bad.
You don't know it's going to be bad.
Oh, listen, it's going to be bad. I know for you, the shining light is going to see your boy, Marcus Mariota,
lead the Falcons to the playoffs.
What playoffs? Like the relegation playoffs? Like
no, what?
No,
they're totally gonna. They're gonna. You know, he was pretty good in Tennessee for a little bit.
That's fine. Tennessee also had like defenders and offensive linemen.
You know, he came in a few times. Backs. Yeah, a few times. What was that last year for the Raiders? And like trick plays and stuff, and he did a great job with those. So, you know. Hey, there's hope.
So that's what the Falcons are living off of this year is Raiders trick plays and hope.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that brings me back to my point, which is it's going to be dark and it's going to be bad. At least you'll have like the red helmets to look forward to against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Who are probably going to, it's the 49ers. Probably still going to obliterate you, but at least you'll have cool red helmets on to get obliterated in. But that being said, I think one of these silver linings we can look forward to this year is the progression from year 1 to year 2 for Kyle Pitts. Last year, became the first rookie tight end since Mike Ditka to go for over 1,000 yards.
Right.
Now, he had the caveat of having 17 games. Or I think they played about 6 back when Mike Ditka used to play. But
something like that.
That being said, the jump from year 1 to year 2 is typically the most drastic in terms of overall performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know ESPN's been going around to our favorite, the anonymous coaches and scouts.
Of course.
And getting their opinions about who the best players are at the positions in their league. Notably, Lamar Jackson left out of the top 10 for quarterbacks. Darius Slay left out of the top 10 for cornerbacks, which I thought was jarring.
Yeah.
But that being said, if I said who's the number 1 tight end in the NFL, you would say?
I mean, right now, probably Travis Kelce.
Okay, he came in at number 2. The other one that's going to kind of flip-flop back and forth, George Kittle.
Yeah.
Came in at number 1. Number 3, Darren Waller, who's just kind of become the model for that hybrid tight end.
Yeah.
Just a freak athlete, should be playing in the NBA. Mark Andrews
really
comes in at number 4, and I mean, deservedly so, right? He led tight ends in targets, receptions, receiving yards, first downs, and air yards per target last year.
Yeah. It's not, I know he doesn't get a lot of pub, but I mean, like, he's been insanely good. Remember, like, back when he was at Oklahoma, it's just like throwing it. Basically, I feel like every time he caught the ball, it was a touchdown.
He was the backbreaker during the Baker Mayfield era at Oklahoma, right? It was just like, you're like, I'm trying to stop the run.
Yeah.
Here comes Baker. Here comes CeeDee Lamb. Here comes Hollywood Brown.
Right.
God, what was that running back's name that they had who cooked Georgia in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
But you have all of
remember.
these weapons. And so when you try, you're like, okay, we're doing everything we can. We're putting a spy on Baker because he can run it too. They're going to run a bubble screen. They're going to try to get somebody over the top, yada, yada, yada. And then all of a sudden, right down splitting your defense is Mark Andrews on a RPO.
Yeah.
It was just, he was the back.
Oh, by the way. Yeah.
And he was excellent. And I loved watching him in college. So he comes in number 4. Number 5, Kyle Pitts.
Okay.
And again, this isn't ESPN opinion. This is them talking to NFL coaches saying who's the best.
Right.
And they have at number 5. His highest ranking from the people they polled was 3.
Dang.
So you can tell
a lot of respect.
Which I think that's disrespectful to Darren Waller.
A little bit.
Kittle, and Kelce. But that being said, an NFL coordinator said he'll be in that Waller Kelce class after next year. He doesn't even know what he's doing yet. Wait until he figures it out.
I like that. And I could see the potential for sure. I mean, you just talk about his ability and his skill level. It's there.
We've all seen that. I think what got him last year was didn't really have a ton around him So everybody kind of knew Matt Ryan was going to try to force feed him the ball, which we knew was going to happen anyway because Matt Ryan loves himself a tight end. But
for sure.
If you had Calvin Ridley, I think that opens him up
Yeah.
so much more. But Calvin Ridley kind of checks out last year
Right.
for the mental health reasons. I shouldn't say check out. That's not a fair way of putting that, but takes himself out to deal with mental health reasons. Not going to have him again this year, but you do have Drake London, and then they basically went out and said, hey, find me anybody over 6'2" that can play in the NFL, and that's who we're going to sign. They're like, listen, if we can't beat them on the field, we'll beat them in the pickup game afterwards. So
see, that's the thing, right? Is like you're saying, Kyle Pitts was really your only big target in the red zone. And they're like, guess what? He only had 1 touchdown last year. We need all the big targets so that they can't just cover him.
Still doesn't have a touchdown on American soil.
Yeah, that is probably one of my not for Kyle Pitts. Like I hate it for him, but at the same time, it's kind of one of my favorite stats from last year.
You know what my least favorite? It's
kind of hilarious.
Used to be, and obviously this has really changed in a big way. But my least favorite stat used to be that Tim Tebow for a long time had more playoff wins than Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
and that was painful. But that being said, I think Kyle Pitts has a chance to be really special, and we could start to see that this year. He went for over 1,000 yards last year, but Falcons were competitive last year. They're not going to be competitive this year. But I think you can start seeing him take that next level to being dominant. And a lot of it's going to come with you get to be in Arthur Smith's system for another year. And one thing they did not ask him to do a lot of at Florida is block. I mean, if you're a 180-pound corner and he got his paws on you, that was a wrap.
Yeah.
But for the most part, sealing an edge, right, wasn't his forte. It was go get open, run 4.4 at 6'6". Right? Freaky. Gets a little bit better at being that inline tight end, lining up with a hand in the dirt versus just being split out all the time. And then you can start confusing defenses like the Darren Wallers do, like the George Kittles do, like the Travis Kelce's do, where you don't know where they're going to line up, which forces your defensive coordinator and whoever's calling the plays on the field for you to just be in panic mode all the time, right? If you can start doing that with Kyle Pitts, he could be special. And if Drake London is able to add just a legitimate target and a legitimate threat on the outside, that's going to open up so much for Kyle Pitts. And Marcus Mariota, you could do worse as your first quarterback.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, his ability aside, I think that's probably one of the biggest developments for Kyle Pitts for me is it's not even him. It's like you said, the people around him, and hopefully Drake London can take some attention away from him on that side of things. And hey, like you said, if Kyle Pitts can get that much better at run blocking, maybe you open up some of those holes, running the football as well, and you have a little bit more of a balanced team. But we'll have to see how those developments work. First thing to me is, like I said, not even him developing and hopefully making some big impact plays elsewhere on the field, so it gives him a little bit more room to work and really display that athleticism that he has. But no, man, like, can you imagine if you could start seeing clips of just Kyle Pitts not bowling over people or anything like that, but just solidly blocking people, and then all of a sudden you get a little fake block, then you leak out. Those could be huge.
The George Kittle specials.
Yeah, man, that could be big.
I know we don't really call those anymore since Shanahan left, but hopefully we can start seeing some of those. I did want to touch on one more thing from these ESPN rankings that are coming out. They did the wide receivers yesterday. Jamar Chase came in at number 3. Justin Jefferson came in at number 4. So to recap with you, LSU in 2018 and 2019 had the 5th best quarterback in the NFL for 2022, and then the 3rd and the 4th best wide receivers in the NFL for 2022.
Yeah.
That's pretty okay.
Complete insanity.
That's not fair.
You know what's crazy too? You started listing that off, and that's not the first place I went. I went, who's 1 and 2?
Oh, for the wide receivers?
Yeah.
Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp.
I mean, I guess.
Cooper Kupp, I think you had to put up there just because of what he did last year, Triple Crown.
I understand.
For wide receivers, catches, yards, and touchdowns. And then Devontae Adams, I think a lot of people kind of view him as Julio Jones 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, he's the best receiver.
Yeah. There's not a lot of room for me to argue any of that. But
he's got a chance to prove it, though, because he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers anymore.
Right. That's the one thing I will argue is, and this might be easy to say now, but Jamar Chase, I would actually agree, probably 3rd there, on that list right now. Very easily could be number 1 coming out of this year. Very easily
with that. I think he's the most talented wide receiver.
It's ridiculous.
And Justin Jefferson's not far behind, and they both played on the same damn team. Why does LSU keep doing that? Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. Like, why do they keep doing that?
I mean, I don't know that. Can you say? I guess you can say keep doing it, but the difference in 2019, the difference of that team is they had all the guys around them too. They didn't just have those two guys at wide receiver. What about what?
You're talking about having guys around at wide receiver.
No, I mean, believe me, I'm specifically talking about LSU.
Yes or not yes or no. Wide receiver, you Alabama or LSU?
Clemson.
Are you looking?
No, I'm just kidding.
This is a fluid situation. We update it as we go.
It's Alabama. Alabama's wide receiver, you. LSU is DBU.
You can be more than one.
No.
I'm not seeing any Alabama receivers inside the top 5. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back, get you ready for 3 and Out next.
2 guys.
The voice you hear in the background, that of course, Kevin Thomas, who's only about 5 minutes early for his show, but that's fine. He can hang out, listen to the pros do it.
I guess.
PJ, you said you had something you wanted to talk about. You were about to bring something up, and you said, I'm going to save it.
I want to save it for your honest reaction, and I didn't want to interrupt your point and what we were talking about in the last segment. But there is one thing you did mention, and there is news today that we haven't gotten to, especially on the uniform front. You mentioned the Atlanta Falcons getting ready to use those red helmets against the 49ers this year, which I can't wait for. We've talked about something, and if they do come out with this, they definitely are, then just forget about it. It's over. They have the best uniforms in the NFL. The Bengals releasing the white Bengal.
They did it?
Teaser. They didn't drop the helmet yet. They dropped a teaser, and it's like this video showing like different tigers, Bengal tigers, whatever. And then it just cuts to, but there's one that's blah, 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 the white Bengal. And then it just fades away.
Did it just cut to a picture of Siegfried and Roy?
No, I don't think that was showed at all. But they just showed a white Bengal tiger, and then it faded away. And then it said coming soon. So it's got to be the white helmet. Yeah. And, dude.
That's crispy.
So it's going to be so clean.
I'm looking at some mock-ups now.
I can't wait.
Yeah, the Bengals 30 minutes ago put out a picture of a white tiger. It said, announcement, local tiger is happy.
Yeah, just shut it down. They got they're incredible. All the other jerseys and helmets in the NFL
might be
take
top
notes.
5 uniform in the NFL. So there you go. There's our daily uniform coverage here on Second Down. Kevin Thomas, Ben Tripp coming up next on 3 and Out. We'll catch everybody tomorrow.